Few comments, even a couple I've deleted and blocked, but I've not in relation to what I'm about to talk about. Are people saying, "Oh, Glenn, you know, I see you hand things to people, and sometimes people don't say thank you, or they're not always grateful." Someone not saying thankful doesn't equate to them not being grateful. Let's start with that. But I will say that when I was in my worst moments on the street, every time I reached my hand out, somebody bit me. So trust was a fucking hard thing, you know. People look at agenda, motive. You've got to understand people have got mental health issues, people are suffering from addiction or alcoholism. There's a multitude of reasons why people might, from appearances, not look to be grateful, but that doesn't mean that they're not grateful. I get people hug me, they say, "I love you, Glenn, you know, I love you, bro." All the time. People say, "Thanks, bro, you have no idea how much that meant to me." Especially the ones where I say, like, one of the things that's really important to me is if I say something to someone on the street, I fucking back it up and do it. You know, like there was a time when someone asked me for a swag and I forgot it. I made a special trip down specifically to deliver that swag. It wasn't about just giving that person about the swag. It's about building the rapport with that person. So that person knows Glenn said it, Glenn meant it. So that in future, if Glenn says it, they know, well, I can count on that. Because when you're on the streets, you know, it's hard to count on anybody. Absolutely anybody. One of the things that I noticed differs from the streets to when I was on it, and this isn't everywhere, and this isn't a blanket statement, but it's an observation, is that when I was on the streets, I grew up with a lot of people my age who we all had each other's back. You mess with me, you mess with everyone. You mess with them, you mess with everyone. You know what I mean? And if I went somewhere, I'd watch your stuff. You know, if I was in this spot and you were in that spot and you said, "Hey, mate, I've got to do this," I'd say, "You're good, bro, I got you." And but these days, the biggest thing that I get from people is every time I leave my stuff, I come back and everything's been taken from me. That's really sad. The other difference between now and then is there wasn't a lot of help when I was on the streets. It looked so much different. We didn't have people walking around giving out foods or different things. There were places you could go to get feeds or different things, but there wasn't the same assistance there is now. But that doesn't mean that because there's more people doing it, that there's the right help that's needed. We need boots on the ground with people with medical training in the field of mental health and drug addiction. There are some lovely people who work in this industry I've met on the street, and there are others who are just crossing T's and dotting I's. If you're watching this, you know which one you are. You know whether or not your heart is actually in it. And look, I get it. In any industry where you work somewhere for a long period of time, you can become hardened to different things. I think that if ever I became hardened with my heart in what I do, I'd stop doing what I do. It's a difficult one doing what I do because you have to battle with, do I show some of what I do on social media? Because there's out there who watch it and think, well, he's only doing that because, you know, to get likes and love hearts or whatever the fuck that they think. That's so far removed from the truth, man. I show you for several reasons. One is I can only do what I do by the grace or love of other people who make donations, who give me the body wash, the shampoo and those different things that enable me to be able to give them out. So that's number one, because it enables people to see that I'm actually doing that. What they get, like I get people messaging me, "Hey man, I saw you handing out my beanies, it felt so good," because they can't give the time, but they were able to give the asset that was needed so they could forward with me. And some of the lovely messages I get, Glenn, you know, like I used to make a video on everything that was donated and thank everybody, but it's gotten a bit, it's growing, you know, I've leveled up a bit in what we're doing, which means that there's a lot more coming in, a lot more going out, which means that I'd have to make a lot of videos to do that. So no, to every person who donates in any way to the Leg Up Project, I am super grateful. I really am. But it's important that people understand that what you see isn't always what I'm getting. You know, you might see them just grab things out of my hand, and some people do that. Some people just grab it and they don't say anything to me at all. And when I first started, I used to myself get a little bit of feelings about that. I was like, oh man, I've just traveled all day in the mountains, you know, that's come out of my book money, and I've given you a $10 gift card and you're fighting over it. And then I started thinking, you know, like, we've got to remember we can't have expectations on how things look. We can't have expectations on how people respond. What we've got to do is come from a place of meeting people where they're at, not where we wish them to be at, and then working from there. The most important part of what I actually do is building rapport. A lot of what you don't see is, like, you know, different places that we went yesterday where we didn't have the camera on, what we're trying to actually do is build relationships and trust with people so that when they go down, they see a familiar face to start with, a face that they're like, oh, hi, Glenn. They recognise me. 2, they know that their story is the same as my story in many ways. I grew up on the streets. I've suffered with mental health. I've suffered with addictions. I've been in and out of prison, and I've lived homeless many times in my life. I've also been, from appearances, ungrateful. But the truth of the matter is, it's been more suspicious of people. You know, anybody that enters my life, based on my history, if you know my history and a lot of abuse and stuff that's happened in it, I was a very pretty boy, so everybody that came at me had an agenda. So by the time I started getting older and people reached out to me, I'd be like, oh, that come from an organisation anyway, so give it to me. They don't know that this is coming, you know, I'm not affiliated with any of these big orgs that get these big donations. But anyway, so try not to be harsh on what you see. And the last thing I want to address is people continually say to me, Glenn, I want to set up a leg up in different areas. Give me time. That is a lovely idea, and I'd love to do that. But you've got to understand that now I'm an actual registered charity. You know, there's a whole lot of protocols that go around that. But if you want to make a difference, get to know your community. Just get to know the people in your community. And if you see someone that's homeless, stop and have a conversation. Please don't just buy them a sandwich and drop it in front of them. That is degrading. It's quite humiliating to do that. Stop and say, hey man, my name's Glenn, and I just want to let you know I see you, man. You know, I know you're struggling, and I really hope for you that life gets better. And if I in any way can help to help you in that way, whether I liaise on your behalf, whether I buy you something to eat, a cup of coffee, or just have a conversation, I'm here for you, man. And if people start to see you on a daily go by, a nice friendly smile and just a wave and say, hey John, how are you today, mate? You know, are you good, bro? Like, can I get you something? You know, just remember I'm here, mate. If you need a hand, you need a leg up, if you need someone to speak on your behalf, to ring a rehab, to ring, you know, whatever, I'm here for you. That's where we start, is building a rapport, because it's really hard to walk past someone when you know their name and you know a little bit about their story. I don't go straight in and say, hey man, what's your story? What I do is I'll talk about the football. What about the friggin' Raiders getting over the Tigers last night, or whatever, you know, and like they know what's going on, you know, they know what's going on in the society for most, you know, or just have a conversation about anything, their dog, their home, where they live, anything. And what I find is that the further they get to trust you, the more they start to reveal themselves to you, rather than trying to draw stuff out of people. Just have a conversation, and when they've built that comfortable feeling, they will share, they will reveal themselves to you themselves. And sometimes I'll stop to someone, I'll say, hey man, can we real talk for a minute, bro? And I'll just say, you know, what are you doing, man? Like, what can we do to make this different, you know? And people say to me, oh, Glenn, some people want to stay on the streets. The last thing we need on the streets is people being comfortable. And what I mean by that is in getting comfortable, as in they're happy to just stay in that situation. And it's easy to do when you don't see the light outside, right? Because I remember when I lived there, I never really knew anything better. It's not until I found something better that I understand that. Like, I look back now and I think to myself, oh man, I wish I had the knowledge I have now back then. But I didn't. You only know what you know, but when you know, then we do better. You know what I mean? So let's start if we have a country of being, you know, one of loving, one of caring of others, I think that's a good place to start. You know, one saved life can change a family. One changed family could change a community. One changed community could change a fucking nation. You know, so every time you save one person's life or one person's soul, that has a ripple effect, man, to their mum, their dad, brother, sister, uncle, auntie, daughter, whatever, you know, and then that has a ripple effect. It ripples out, man. Today's addict, today's homeless people could be tomorrow's advocate. So have a good day, everyone. I'll be live tomorrow night with a guy who's walking from Canberra his name's Alan. He's walking from Melbourne to Canberra for mental health. And I'm really keen to have a conversation with this man. He's got a lot of energy. He's a beautiful guy, man, with a really, really lovely heart. And he'll be on tomorrow night at 7 p.m. on TikTok with Glenn. So now I'm talking about myself in the third person. I messaged my daughter, I said, Dad loves you. And she messages back, can't you just say, I love you? Like, why has it got to be the third person? I never even realised I was doing that, right? Anyway, it is what it is. Have a good day.